The film Papillion that I want to explore is a remake of older version in 1973, which is based on the 1969 autobiography by French convicted Henri Charary. The prison of Saint-Laurent-du-Maroni, where Henri Charary was held and where most of the action takes place, was faithfully recreated using the original blueprints. Footage of historic prison in French Guiana plays under the end of the credits, which is shown to be abandoned and covered in jungle growth. Today, I'm going to make a comparison between two films, which are Papillion 2018 from Malta, that directed by Michael Noir, and The Shawshank Redemption 1994 from United States, that directed by Frank Darabont. I'm gonna explore the similarities and differences in these two films, which related to two cultural contexts, social and technical. I justify selecting these two films because they both share a prison genre but represent different styles and narrations in them. The two films both tell us a prison-breaking story, which Papillion focuses on hope in people's mind.
Listen, all we need to do is build a raft and get into the ocean. The tide will take us straight to the mainland. Just come and see. Come and see.
And Shawshank focuses on the both hope and how prison institutionalized prisoners.
Sometimes it makes me sad, though, Andy being gone. I have to remind myself that some birds aren't meant to be caged. Their feathers are just too bright. And when they fly away, the part of you that knows it was a sin to lock them up does rejoice.
My thesis of this comparative study will be how the directors in these two films use specific film techniques and some representations of reality in the two prisons to tell us about two words, hope and institutionalization. My film focus will be a genre study of prison movies from different cultures. The specific elements that I want to explore are lighting, narrative techniques, and social realities that occur in or out of two prisons. The prison movies always has dark and chaotic environment in them. Themes repeatedly visited in prison films include escape attempts, gun activity inside of the prison, efforts of wrongly convicted person to prove their innocence, and guard and management cruelty. Those activities are all shown in these two films that I'm going to compare between. While some historians classify prison films as offshoots of the gangster movies, others treat the prison films as relating more closely to social problem films. The two films both reveal a disorder with imperfect legal system and with upper-class corruption society. The two films are both set in the prisons. However, the Papillion has a darker environment and treatment in it, since its purpose is to illustrate the hope in the notorious penal colony in French Guiana. During the time that Papillion was in solitary confinement, the cinematographer uses merely low-key lighting in order to let the audience able to see him, which created a lonely and round characteristic for the protagonist. In the film Shawshank, they are not as violent as the film Papillion. It shows us Andy's worrying face via close-up many times, which let us guess what is thoughts in his mind. When Andy finds the one who can testify his innocence, it is the first time that always calm Andy shows intense emotions to the audience. Then, the warden kills the boy in the dark field at night with only a back leg behind them. After the boy is dead, Andy's last hope is gone and he is sent to the solitary confinement for 2 weeks. The director does not show us how he passes the 2 weeks, but only let us see the scene that Andy gets out of the dark room after 2 weeks with a despairing look. The two protagonists both have an experience that are solitary confinement. The wardens both want to eliminate their last hope in the dark and its despairing room. For sound designs in the two films, in the film Papillion, there are no other sounds but only with his breathing and stepping sounds that he made in the small room. These diegetic sounds are meaning to convey realism and solitude when he was in the solitary confinement. The completely silence that the warden makes is to destroy the prisoners without any other push, since there's no one can stand years of silence. In contrast, Shawshank has a narrator who's Andy's best friend in the prison, Red, to help developing with the plot. His voice tells us the first expression when he saw Andy.
I must admit I didn't think much of Andy the first time I laid eyes on him. Looked like a stiff breeze would blow him over.
and what Andy did to let his friends have the chance to do work and drink beers on the roof, and also his life after he got approved for his parole application. The non-diegetic narrations make the scene more heartwarming and the plot more smooth.
There's a harsh truth to face. No way I'm gonna make it on the outside.
There is a similarity in the two films, which is institutionalization, that mentioned in Shawshank. It means that when people stay in the prison for a long period of time, the outside world is no longer fitting with them. That's why Old Brooks has suicide after his approval of parole. The editor uses montage to demonstrate the life after he comes back to the world. The director uses few scenes and narrative voiceover by himself, which shows that he doesn't belong to the society anymore. All people around him are treating him like a prisoner still, even he's very kind and polite to others. It also explains why the best friend of Papillion, Daga, has decided to stay in the Devil Island when they have the chance to escape. Before Papillion jumps off the cliff, he tells Papillion that he does not have enough courage to face the outside world after years of prison life. He says,
I need to stay. For the same reason you have to go.
Old Brooks and Daga, those people are already belong to the prison and even they are part of the prison. They cannot fit right in the outside society anymore since they have stayed in the prison for that long time. Their hope of getting out of the prison and turning their lives back to normal are long gone during the prison's institutionalization. Shawshank represents realism in society, where people live in invisible walls with no hope at all. At first, the young people with their unique personalities and ideals entered the social concentration camp. After several years of being stereotyped and institutionalized, they gradually lost themselves and became the copy of most people, standing in high walls without knowing it. The prison is a smaller society which has representation meanings in it. The film Babylon represents more a disordered and unfair society by the dark and violence in the prison. This film takes place at a real prison located in Guyana, a French colony in South America, and consists of 3 small islands separated by the sea. Over a century, 80,000 prisoners were trapped there, and 40% of them will die in their first year. The prisoners there have no hope at all in their heart because of the illegal labors that offer to them every day. Since it is a true story that happened there, the audience will feel more immersed about the plot.
Your appeal is in a few weeks.
In Babylon, even though you did a crime, you will be fine as long as you have enough money to support for your escape. And in Shawshank, the warden uses the prisoners to work for the community as volunteers, but actually the warden gets all of the benefits from their labor, which is illegal. Because of the corruption in prison, Andy still can be testified as innocent when the truth comes out. About Babylon, he didn't even try to testify that he is innocent because he knows that how strong the power that the gangster has in that area. Although these two films have genre of prison breaking, they both show us a disordered, imperfect legal system and with the upper classes corruption society.